Hello everyone, thank you for joining us on this edition of the news on Équinoxe Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. In our top stories, allegations of embezzlement of coronavirus funds rise to the sky in the Republic of Cameroon as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, awaits a clear report on how President Paul Biya's country has been spending the over 300 billion francs CFA received for the fight against the coronavirus pandemic and fight and disagreements between militants of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement CPDM political party delays the election of a new mayor and deputy in Bangante West region of the Republic of Cameroon. Former Prime Minister Chidiachu dies at the age of 86 and out of the country. The World Health Organization says that a minor outbreak of Ebola has been contained. We begin this newscast in Bangante in the Ndé Division, West region of the Republic of Cameroon, where a fight and disagreements between militants of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPDM) political party is delaying the election of a new mayor and deputies in that municipality. Majority of the councillors boycotted an extraordinary session and stayed away from that session as a result of some disagreements, and because of that decision could not hold, it had to be postponed by the senior divisional officer of the Ndé Division. Details in this report by Informi Armstrong Sander.
The extraordinary elective General Assembly at the Bangante Council Hall, supervised by the senior divisional officer for the Ndé Division, had as objective the election of the new mayor and deputy for the Bangante Council, a session which follows the death of the mayor Jonas Kwamo on March the 5th, 2021, and falls in line with Article 205 of the General Code of Regional and Local Authorities. While the senior divisional officer for the Ndé Division and his entourage were seated for the exercise, a roll call of municipal councillors revealed a shocking reality. Only 16 out of 40 councillors were present, with 24 disappointingly absent. A reality that got the CPDM special representative totally disappointed, given that the all CPDM councillors were present on the eve of the election for the investiture exercise, during which the CPDM candidate for the position of mayor was decided.
Envoyer une adresse à ceux-là qui sont encore en train d'hésiter pour leur dire que jeudi.
Disappointed as well, the senior divisional officer for the Ndé Division decided to call off the elective session in conformity with the law, which states that such an election can only be carried out with at least 2/3 of the councillors present. But before leaving the Bangante Council Hall, the SGO for the Ndé Division rescheduled the session for Thursday, May the 6th, 2021, calling on the absentee councillors to be present. In our quest to know why some councillors choose to stay away, a Bangante municipal councillor off camera confided that the candidate presented during the CPDM investiture process was not accepted by all councillors.
He says he was detained for over 2 years for simply doing his job. He is Wawa Jackson, journalist working in the crisis-stricken Northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, and he spoke to our Northwest correspondent, Mbu Stella, yesterday on the occasion of the World Press Freedom Day. Details in this report.
When Wawa Jackson went to his village, Tabinken, he never realized his program could be interrupted. Wawa had just published an article he titled "Embezzlement at the Tabinken Palace Project" on his Facebook page. The Facebook article attracted many comments from its readers, comments which were uncomfortable to those involved and their supporters. He was then picked up by gendarmes in Kambe and tortured for 3 days. Wawa believes he was being monitored.
Well, it started on the 15th of May 2018. Few minutes after my arrival in Cambe Town, I was rounded by gendarmerie officers, and the only thing I heard from them was "C'est lui" after looking at my ID card, and I was asked to be taken away. I was arrested without a warrant, and it was also accompanied with beatings. I was beaten throughout these 3 days.
Wawa was then charged for publishing secessionist messages and threatening the life of a politician. He was sent to court as he pleaded not guilty.
I told them my job is to write and disseminate information, and I don't mean any harm to anybody. So if anybody sees my write-ups or my criticism as something meant to harm anybody, then the person is mistaken.
His case, just like those of other journalists facing trials in courts in Cameroon, suffered a bail application rejection on grounds that he committed a felony. It also suffered several adjournments. As his trial went on in Cambe, his charge of threat of life disappeared. During this period, the national and international committee was mobilized with messages calling for his release. Also, he was contacted to write an apology that would see his release hastened. Wawa tells Equinoxe Television in Bamenda that the prison walls already taught him how to be resilient.
Prison is not something to dream of. But when you find yourself inside, you just need to devise a way of surviving in the dungeon.
Today, journalists around the world are commemorating the World Press Freedom Day, reflecting on the theme, information as a public good. In Cameroon, journalists have been jailed for publishing information they considered relevant to the population. The situation is worsened by the current socio-political and security crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Since the escalation of the crisis in Anglophone Cameroon, journalists in the northwest region have been targeted. They have either been kidnapped or threatened by non-state armed groups or arrested by the state. Media houses have also been burned down by these armed groups and some others sealed by the government. Despite these challenges that are forcing the journalists to survive otherwise, journalism must continue, Wawa says.
If a journalist points out that there is a problem, I think it is the position of those who govern to look at what the problem is and not attacking journalists, because journalism will never stop. Journalists have died on duty and nobody is backing out because of that. Not even imprisonment can scare journalists from practicing their profession with dignity.
In their 2020 report, Reporters Without Borders ranked Cameroon 134th out of 180 countries in the World Press Freedom Index. This raises worries like, is journalism a dangerous profession, especially in Cameroon?
Since the International Monetary Fund (IMF) granted close to 300 billion francs CFA to Cameroon for the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, the institution says it has not received any report from the government of Cameroon with regards to how the money is being spent till now, and this is in contradiction to the agreement Cameroon signs with the IMF in relation to that fund. Till now, information made public only concerns how the fund was distributed to different institutions within the framework of government's fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Details in this report by Equinoxe.
Regarding the more than 210 billion francs CFA loan granted to Cameroon to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) is yet to receive reports from the government of Cameroon on how the COVID-19 funds were spent. On basis of transparency, the IMF and the Cameroonian authorities nevertheless agreed on the production of a semi-annual report on the execution of disbursement expenditure, with the first on May 14th, 2020 to the tune of 136 billion francs CFA, and the deadline of October 21st when the IMF released nearly 78 billion francs CFA. The government only published information on the COVID-19 contracts on the website of the Public Procurement Regulatory Agency. Nowhere can be found reports of the independent audits of the Ministry of Finance, let alone the reports of the audit bench of the Supreme Court. On the IMF and State of Cameroon agreements to make public all the informations on the management of COVID-19 funds, the Cameroonian authorities have so far not published the slightest figure on this money, despite the denunciation of misappropriation by SGF MP Jean-Michel Ninche and members of the civil society. Faced with the death silence of the Ministry of Public Health on management of these huge COVID-19 funds, the publication of funds allocated to several ministries even raised questions about the actual use of this money. For instance, 26 billion francs CFA for many parts of Alamein Ousmane May, 6 billion francs CFA to the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation of Magdalene Twente, or Jacques Famendongo of Higher Education Ministry, to cite but these. The Minister of State, Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic, ordered an investigation be initiated for the arrest of all the actors, co-actors and accomplices concerned with mismanagement of these funds. This produced nothing more than a ping-pong game between the Justice Minister, Laurent Esso, and Ferdinand Gongo of the task force on the evidence against him. As at now, it is in total cloudiness that the 210 billion francs CFA COVID-19 fund is being managed, as Cameroonians are kept away from the slightest information on a loan that they will have to repay. The IMF desperately awaits on its table the two detailed financial reports of the COVID-19 expenditure from the periods of May 2020 to May 2021.
Cameroonians in their vast majority are increasingly losing trust in insurance companies. Many say that when insurance users are involved in accidents or other incidents requesting payment of indemnity by insurance companies, this either delays or never comes, and this is why efforts are now being made to reassure the public that government will continue mounting pressure and of course ensuring that the insurance companies respect their agreements, respect their engagements with users. It is in this report by Davidson Maimo and Limbe.
Each time a house goes on flame, motor accident and loss of life through accident, insurance is what comes in mind. However, Cameroonians are lukewarm towards insurance policies.
They don't pay insurance because the insurance company don't compensate their clients after accidents or any event that concern compensation from the insurance.
Because insurance is, if you go to insurance, you will delay before you benefit anything from them.
To be insured is not just a responsible action, but also a citizen commitment. This explains why insurance company in the southwest region failed to impact in the population
of the lexicon of the profession. For several years now, professionals of the sector have demonstrated their weakness or inability to strictly implement the existing regulations, but are instead carrying out unorthodox practices which have pulled the sector in the wrong direction, and this has caused great losses to the state as well.
In a one-day seminar organized by the Ministry of Finance as the Southwest region celebrates its first ever Insurance Awareness Day under the theme Insurance and Customer Satisfaction, the Inspector General at the Southwest Governor's Office says fraudsters have infiltrated the insurance sector.
Insurance is a very important element in the society, but unfortunately, the population is ignorant about what goes on. And this ignorance is the thing that has encouraged these fraudsters, that they come in between insurance company and the insurer and begin to deceive them.
Officials from the Ministry of Finance used the occasion to assure the public of government commitment in protecting its citizens.
If you are insured legally, the government is there to assure you that when the damage or when this incident that you insured occurs, you are actually paid for.
Prior to the day, insurance awareness campaign took place in all major towns across the region.
Former Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroon, Simon Achidiachu, is no more. He died earlier today in the United States of America at the age of 86 following ill health. Simon Achidiachu was the Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroon from 1992 to 1996. Before becoming Prime Minister, he served as Minister of Justice from 1972 to 1975. He was a leading member of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPD) and political party, and he was appointed as chairman of the National Investment Corporation in 2003. He was elected to the Senate in 2013. He will certainly be remembered for his service to the nation, but also for some of his political slogans, including politics, Nanjangi, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, all conveying the idea that politics is a two-way game, giving and taking. And in news out of Cameroon, several dozens of people have reportedly been killed by suspected jihadis on Kodie, a locality in Komanjari province in the eastern part of Burkina Faso. A joint security source said a large number of armed individuals attacked the village of Kodie in the Futuri Council area yesterday, killing dozens of civilians and volunteers of the Defense of the Fatherland, that is a civil society auxiliary engaged in the anti-jihadist fight alongside defense and security forces, confirmed the attack. It spoke of a very heavy toll, at minimum 20 to 30 deaths and over 20 persons injured. An operation to secure the population and track down the attackers is said to be underway. The World Health Organization says a small outbreak of Ebola virus has been contained in an eastern province in the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to Congo's Minister of Public Health, the outbreak infected 12 people and killed 6 in North Kivu province. In a statement, the World Health Organization congratulated the Democratic Republic of Congo's health authorities and the health workers on the ground for their swift response, which build on the country's previous experience in tackling Ebola outbreaks. And the World Health Organization had an estimated 60 experts on the ground to help local workers trace contacts, provide treatment, engage communities, and vaccinate nearly 2,000 people at high risk, including more than 500 frontline workers. And that's it for the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. We are receiving a legal mind, Barrister Kamwa Limen, head of the Kamwa Limen Law Firm here in Cameroon's economic capital, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, PhD English law researcher. Thank you for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure, Mr. Babila. Glad being here.
One of the legal institutions, or one of the judicial institutions in Cameroon, set ablaze in Fumbot in the west region of the country by an angry mob who were protesting over what they consider as refusal of medical attention to an inmate who finally died in detention. Your reaction to that?
Well, it's a very terrible situation, and it goes to show how the state of Cameroon doesn't respect human rights, which are, we know for sure that they have signed and ratified many treaties in regards to the respect of human rights. And in that situation, we'll be talking about the right to health and the right to be granted a provisional liberty bail, which was not respected by the institution. That's the court and the legal department.
And the court is set ablaze. The court premises, the court building set ablaze. The court of first instance of Lum. When the court is set ablaze in this context, what are the legal implications?
Well, it is not good for the common man, because people go to court to get justice. And you know, because of one situation, the whole court is burned down. It creates injustice equally to people who had their matters in court. It is not a good thing, and it should not be encouraged that angry persons go to burn the courts or whatever. It's not correct. I think by doing so, they have caused more injustice to many more people than the one person who died. It's unfortunate in any case that somebody had to die because the people who had to take a decision failed to take it.
And those who orchestrated the burning of the court of first instance of Lum, what are the legal punishments that could be meted on them in case of investigations and other issues surrounding that incident?
You know, they have committed the offense to destroy public property. It's an offense, and the State Council will have to establish many more offenses linked to that. But I will not want us to focus simply on the fact that the court was burnt and forget the fact that there was a contributory factor, which is the reason why the people went to burn down the court. I think that equally is very, very important, because it's out of anger, you know, provocation. It's a defense in criminal law. And I think that though I don't condone those acts, but somewhere there's kind of frustration that pushed the mob to commit such an act. And I think it is profitable for us to look at the reasons why people will do that and maybe stop it, so we don't get this repeated subsequently.
And the question many will be asking is, why should a sick inmate be abandoned to die, so to speak, or not be granted access to medical attention to the point that he dies in detention?
Mr. Babila, it is sad and portrays the level of negligence and the level of disrespect of human rights, because we have signed and ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, in which is Article 7 makes provision for the humane treatment of everybody, be it those who are out of prison or those who are in prison. And so it is incumbent, it is obligatory, it is duty bound. The government is duty bound to enforce those provisions. And Mr. Babila, in our Criminal Procedure Code, it is well spelled out in Article 122 and 123 that inmates, be it at the police station or the prisons, they have the right to medical facilities, and that it is within the competence of the State Council, once an application has been made, for them to grant within 24 hours for somebody to receive medical attention. And if the state cannot pay, the individual can pay for those medical services. And so we ask, therefore, why would an inmate who file an application to see to receive medical attention was not granted? Why was it not granted? And that is where the population actually got mad.
And before this case, we had other cases of detainees of the Anglophone crisis, Shufai, who died in detention. We still have some, like Thomas Awa, who is a journalist, being detained in a critical health condition. I just hope that his health condition might have improved, should have improved by now.
What I want, yes.
We saw pictures of him chained on a sick bed and things like that.
You know, Mr. Babila, what I want us to take note of is the fact that human right is a law, it's a treaties that the state is duty bound to respect them. Whoever is in custody has a right to medical attention. And the question is, if the state fails to do that, what remedies are open to the victims? They can sue the state. The state can be sued for human rights violation. And I think the accused person or the inmates who died in detention has the right to sue Cameroon government for violation of human rights. Same goes with whom I know personally, and the other people who have been held in police custody and in prisons who are not given the opportunity to receive medical treatment. It is bad.
And that leads to a protest of that magnitude in that part of the country. When you look at the manifestation of anger by the inhabitants of Fumban with regards to this case, what do you read within the lines of social issues connected to social justice and the possibility of an uprising that could take a greater magnitude than what we saw in Fumbot?
You know, if the authorities are honest, they will agree with me that for a while now, we've had indicators that something is going wrong in that area. We see there was this uproar between the mayor and the sultan. We see recurrently there are issues coming up in Fumban, which is indicative that there is a real problem in that environment. And therefore, the government, the administration should take serious steps to identify what problems those people are facing and see how they can resolve them before it degenerates again to something else. We're not expecting this, but it happened.
And the person who died, the victim who died, according to information at our disposal, was involved in illegal business, and that is the business of selling drugs along the roadsides, and that's why he was thrown in jail. And there is an issue that comes out of that, because those consuming the drugs are supposed to be protected. Those consuming the drugs are supposed to be protected. Now, that's why he was cast in jail. But casting him in jail does not solve the problem, because there are still illegal drugs that are being sold everywhere, not only in Fumbot, but everywhere around the country. Consumers not being protected.
You see, Mr. Babila, we should ask the question, why do people go to roadsides, vendors to buy medicines? It's because they don't have the means. We don't have a means, and a good government will subsidize medicines, medications, but we don't have it here. And so if you're sick, you're left on your own. And so the people not having a choice will revert to road vendors to get those medications, which is very dangerous. But Mr. Babila, what I want us to draw, the legal aspect of what happened is, it is a court of first instance, which is indicative that the matter for which this inmate or this accused person was tried was a misdemeanor, and misdemeanor are bailable offenses. Why was he not granted bail? Because it will appear he filed for bail, and the State Council had to adjourn the matter for his submission. And you see, those are the areas that some of us doing research we are working on. Because if you claim, if the law provides that misdemeanors are bailable offenses, and then you find somebody who is sick in prison and he cannot be granted bail, then there's a problem. It's a serious problem.
It's a violation of the law, is that?
It is a violation of the law. And why is it a violation of the law? Because the law itself is not the law is ambiguous. The law is contradictory. They said that the State Council has to give a submission, has to submit before the bail is granted by the judge. And the State Councils in the civil law jurisdictions are reputed to always adjourn to give their submissions, whereas in the common law jurisdiction, it is done in court. So I think it is a problem, and some of us are doing research on that.
Right, going back to the root cause of the matter, which has to do with the selling of illegal drugs, and the authorities, in the light of protecting the consumers, protecting the citizens, had to stop the activity and cast him in jail. But the activity, despite these actions of administrative authorities arresting people involved in illegal business, involved in selling of drugs illegally, seem not to be solving the problem, because the consumer is still at risk. The business is still prospering almost everywhere. And I was going to ask you, what does the law say about principles of consumer protection?
Well, Mr. Babila, you asked me a very important question, and it's subject to one of a book that has to be launched here in Douala on the 7th of this month. That's Friday the 7th. It's written by Professor Alvin Boma Longla, And in that book, she tries to explain what the rights of the consumer, how the rights of consumers can be protected. Because you know, most people don't even know, most consumers don't even know that they have a right. You understand? The services provided by producers needs to attain quality, and that will reflect the price and the quality of the product. So I think we have more people coming up to write on consumer protection, and I'm happy that she could come up with such a great initiative, and we're looking forward for such a launch. And I think the chairman of that ceremony is Tumfo Barrister Nico Hale, who will at least give some throw more light on consumer protection laws in Cameroon.
And of course, we consumers will be certainly more concerned about the implementation of the content of such a book.
Yes, it is. It is very important, first of all, to even know your right, to know your rights as a consumer. And when you know those rights, then you know how to defend, how to fight and get your right as a consumer. You know, we have a lot of problems in Cameroon when it comes to consumer protection. Look at the water we pay. We pay water with Cam Water. Can you drink water coming from your tap? We pay electricity, high electricity bills. Can you boast that you have electricity all the time? So there are even the network. Okay, I give you an example. MTN offers mobile money, right? Make a mistake and send your money to a wrong number. It takes you a whole lot of procedure to recover that money. So how do you protect the consumer who is consuming that service?
And away from that, many of the drugs, many of the products imported into the country are often than not put through adequate control mechanisms that should protect the consumers.
Why? Because there's corruption. You just need to bring something at the ports there, you see one or two persons, you negotiate and it enters. You go to our borders are extremely porous. You can beat the borders with whatever you carry. And when you come, you meet helpless citizens who don't have the means, especially that of medications. They don't have the means. They know that paracetamol is the same at the roadside, it's cheaper at the roadside than in a pharmacy. And do you know something? It is alleged that some of the pharmacies even get medicines from the roadsides to sell.
Quite dangerous there.
Extremely dangerous.
Whatever the case is, to be discouraged.
Yes.
Going to purchase drugs,
especially drugs
at the roadside,
is extremely dangerous.
To be discouraged because it is very dangerous and risky for human health, because you don't know the quality of what you're consuming and the impact it's going to have on your system.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Barrister Kamwa Limen, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, PhD English law researcher, head of the Kamwa Limen law firm here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Thank you for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure, Mr. Babira.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That will be it for today. Equinoxe comes up next.